o'clock. And so I want to say hello, beloved church family of the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. If you don't know me, if there's anyone that's joined that doesn't know me, my name is Judith Roberts, and I'm your host tonight. I welcome you to our midweek oasis, our Wednesday night service. Our Wednesday night oasis is a place where we come together as a community to be spiritually refreshed between Sundays. Most Wednesday night services build on the theme of the previous Sunday, sharing a satsang style, expressing science of mind principles and practices with the intention that these gatherings are to be informal, intimate, and interactive. Our annual theme for 2024 is a grand rising. Our monthly theme for June is Holy Boldness. Last Sunday, Reverend Catherine Sachs introduced ideas inspired by the talk title of Fired Up. And tonight, our speaker will continue exploration of the same topic. As we gather tonight, I really want to welcome you. Earlier in her ministry with us, Reverend Sunshine Michelle invited us to come to the center well. To do so, she shared these 6 C's for us to consider and incorporate. Compassion. Come with the heart of love and tenderness. Communication. Come ready to exchange openly. Camaraderie. Come in friendship and family. Communion. Come in harmony and ready to share. Collaboration. Come in partnership and cooperation. And consciousness. Come in spiritual awareness and truth. So as we move into the program tonight, these 6 C's are the premise of sharing a wonderful evening with you. If you're new to our community or watching our recording, please visit our homepage at oaklandcsl.org and click on the I'm New icon and look at the lower left-hand corner of that page to submit your email address. Once you do, you'll begin receiving the Village News newsletter once a week on Thursdays in your email. It has all the information on what is happening at the center in the coming weeks. Before we get started with the talk, please mute your own audio microphone, as this will improve the quality of our recording and tonight's transmission. You can leave your camera on. And please stay tuned through the end of the service to receive special and important announcements. So it is my pleasure tonight to introduce our speaker, Chaplain Doug Myers, who will be speaking to the topic Fired Up. Doug was licensed as a religious science practitioner in 2005 and has been in service at the Oakland Center since 2001. And I think if we do the math, well, it's a lot of years. It's almost 20 years. At OCSL, he served on the Board of Trustees, the Youth Church, Education Offerings, Grief Support Group, and continues to co-facilitate the monthly diversity circle with his friend and co-founder Sri Devi Ramathan. In September 2016, Doug was ordained as an interfaith chaplain and minister from the as an interfaith chaplain and minister from the Chaplaincy Institute in Berkeley. He has volunteered as a bereavement counselor with Gentiva, which is also known as Kindred Hospice, and continues to support the Walnut Creek Police Department as a police chaplain. He says, I am here for God. I can bring this to church, to a tragic scene, to corporate life. Peace and blessings. So Doug, thank you in advance for being our speaker tonight. As we do with every organized event at the center, we open with prayer. Doug, will you be doing the honors tonight?
I will not. Alice Knudsen, who is a practitioner here at OCSL, has graciously accepted my offer for her to do the opening prayer tonight.
All right, I'd like to hand it over to Alice then.
Okay, so everybody just allow your eyes to gently close and just go within. And as you breathe in and as you breathe out, as we breathe in and out together, just knowing that there's only the one breath, this one sacred breath. And so as we go into the stillness where the power and the presence of God resides within, I am filled with joy, the joy of coming together in prayer to bless this sacred time together. For God is everywhere present, in all things, back of all things. And I know with certainty that this time together is blessed, that Spirit is everywhere present, that the goodness and the greatness and the graciousness and the glory of that divine presence is here. The atmosphere is scintillating with love and joy and anticipation. As we bless Doug and as he brings his message to us tonight, and as we open our ears and listen attentively and invite those words in, we are truly blessed and we are in for a treat. So this time is sacred and wonderful things are happening. And God is in charge. And when God is in charge, everything goes perfectly. So please join me in saying, and so it is. Blessed be.
And so it is. And so we turn it over now to Chaplain Doug Myers.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Alice. And thank you, community, for coming tonight for the first June Wednesday Oasis of Holy Boldness, and our topic tonight that is fired up. In the chat, you'll see a sort of a prose poem. That's what I used for the meditation earlier. It was actually written by, I believe she's a United Methodist minister. But when I read it, I thought it was really beautiful, and that it sort of lent itself to the teachings of Science of Mind. So that's what that is. All right. Well, let me turn this little fan because it'll go out. First thing I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to light a candle for LGBTQ pride. So let's move this out of the way. Flip it over my face. Where the hell is it? It's not. Isn't that weird? Oh, almost had it. Almost. Oh, there it is. Let's see. Okay. So that's probably as good as I'm going to get. So I think I made this when I was in Prac 1. I think it was a project that Marnie Curry did, and we had to put like these little confetti, like paper mache kind of things in the glass, and she had put the Science of Mind teaching symbol on it. So this is like going on 20. Well, it's certainly 18 years old, maybe a little more. I used to travel for work, and I would actually bring this with me so that I could light it in the hotel rooms that I stayed at. So let me just write, since we're firing up tonight. And the meditation this evening too was around bringing in the light to us. So just know, even though you won't see it, that the light is here holding all of us at the Wednesday Oasis this evening. All right, so again, my name is Doug Myers. I use the gender pronouns he, him, and his. And I'm going to talk just a teeny tiny bit about Pride Month, and then we'll kind of move into more spiritual topics, if you will. So the Pride Month actually was started in 1970. And this was after the Stonewall riots that happened in New York City in 1969. And it was a way for LGBTQ identified people to have a sense of pride, to have a sense of worth, to have a sense of centeredness, to have a sense of belonging, and to celebrate our lives unabashedly in the world. So it's greatly evolved so that, I mean, so the first gay pride I think I went to was in 1981, maybe. And at that point it was LGBT. The acronym has greatly evolved over the past 54 years since it was first used. So now you may see LGBT, QQ, IA, P, 2S plus. So let's see how much, so you can pop them in the chat, or you can come off if you muted yourself. So, so with the first one, the letter L, what is that for?
Lesbian.
Right. And the G?
Gay.
And the B?
Bisexual.
And the T?
Transgender.
And the two Qs?
Queer.
Questioning.
Yes. And the I?
Intersect.
Yes, intersex. And the A?
Asexual.
Yes. And the P? Think of the little guy that plays the pipes in Greek mythology.
Pan.
Pan.
Yeah. So pansexual.
Pansexual. Okay.
And then the 2S. So that's for two-spirit for the American indigenous communities. So often two-spirit people embodied masculine and feminine consciousness, and they were often the healers in the tribes. And in fact, there's a powwow that's held in San Francisco every year in February. And I remember the year that I went, there was a two-spirit man. He identified as a man, but he was in his tribe. He was not allowed to dance the male dances because he had been born a female, and so this was the first dance he was able to do with other men at the powwow. So if you ever have the opportunity to go, I highly recommend it. All right, so got one more. There's a plus sign. Any idea for what that is?
Everything else.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all of the other identities that are not encompassed by the acronym. And I think, I mean, really just kind of hold it as like an umbrella term, because it's really often used to refer to the entire community as a whole. And it's changed a lot in, like I said, 54 years. And so like all of us, I'm sure it's going to continue to evolve over time. One other thing I just wanted to quickly mention was the flag that I have behind me as my Zoom background. So this is actually called the Progress Pride flag. And the original, so see here. The original couple fun stuff. So the original, this is a six bar. This is the original, not the original, it's the second iteration. So it went red, orange, yellow, green, turquoise, and violet. The very first one that was done was actually 8. They, at the very top, they had hot pink, which represented sex. Then the red, which represents life. The orange is healing. The yellow is sunlight. The green is nature. Then after that, actually, another color that they took out was turquoise. And the turquoise represented magic. And then the indigo is serenity. And the violet is spirit. So it was too costly to make the flags with these 8 stripes, so they lowered it to 6. So that's kind of what stuck for a long time. And then it was in the 2000s when other flags started being used. So with this new one, this progress flag, so it adds these chevrons over here. And so it has black, brown, light blue, pink, white. Then there's this yellow with the purple circle. So these are to represent marginalized people of color, the black and the brown, the pink, the blue, and the white represent the transgender community. And then I'm not exactly sure where it is, but there's a color, I don't know off the top of my head, I apologize, but there is one of the colors that is to represent those who are either living with HIV/AIDS or who have made their transition due to that disease. And then lastly, the yellow yellow background with the purple circle, that's to represent the intersex community. And I won't put your mind into this stuff, so don't worry. So, all right, so let's kind of dig into this stuff. So this is, as I mentioned, week 2 of a month of holy boldness, and here we are at the topic tonight, fired up. Okay, so one more little piece of gay history. 3 years before the Stonewall Inn riot, right here in San Francisco, there was the Compton cafeteria riot in the Tenderloin. This is in 1966. The cafeteria was located at the corners of Taylor Street and Turk Street. So at that point in time, police were harassing and arresting drag queens, because if you were a man and you presented as a woman, you could be arrested. They were arresting primarily trans women, prostitutes, hustlers. And so they would go to this Compton cafeteria because it was open all night. And the police started coming in, and there was a night in August in 1966 when these folks had had enough. A police officer was trying to arrest a drag queen, and she threw her coffee at him, and then mayhem broke out, and there were coffee cups flying and saucers and plates and glasses, and chairs went through windows. It spilled out into the streets, and there was a fire. And so if you look at what happened in San Francisco 3 years prior to Stonewall, you might say that those who participated those evenings were really, really fired up. So there is a, and if you're interested, there was a documentary put out in 2005 called Screaming Queens, the Riot at Compton's Cafeteria. And it was, I think, written and directed by Susan Stryker, who's a very well-known trans woman who lives here in the Bay Area. All right, so being fed up, being angry, that's certainly one way to feel fired up. So what I pose to all of you is, can you share some other ways to experiencing being fired up? And it can be a situation, it can be a word, whatever comes to mind. Nada.
Can you
Not
repeat
yet.
the question?
Doug, can you repeat the question?
Sure. So in the example of the participants that were in the riot, you could assume that they were very fired up, but they were fired up because they were angry. They were tired of being put down, and that caused all of that emotion to come up and to cause the riots to happen. But there are other ways that we can become fired up, and that's what I'm just curious to hear what you all think about that.
I could contribute.
Okay.
I think fired up means for me being deeply in touch with my values. And it also means I thought about this since last Sunday. It seems to me that and I've been struggling with my ideas about, what is God? And I haven't really taken any courses at all. But it seems to me there's a dialectic between the self and the community. And so fired up is not just about a self sort of, acting in the world. It is the self and their community in the context of their community.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Andrea. Alice K.
I was thinking about how one can use one's creativity to express oneself in a fired up way that's really can be very constructive and useful.
Great.
Like I'm just thinking about in the 60s when all this music was written. And I'm hoping there's going to be a lot more music written about what we're dealing with these days. Yeah. Thank you. I'm complete.
Great, thank you, Alice. And Robert.
So just a quick comment about what you said with anger. I mean, anger can be a great source of energy for social changes, as we've seen, in the 50s and 60s and other times as well. But what I want to mention, another way of being fired up is I think of it as inspiration. Mm-hmm. Something that that really reaches down to some core values that you have, like Andrea was talking about, and wanting to see those core values manifested in the world, and being willing to take action to do that, feeling inspired in that way. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else?
Doug, I'm going to offer the word passionate.
Passionate, great.
Having
Thank you.
passion about something fires me up. Thanks.
And I'll just add joy. Joy can fire me up too.
Absolutely. Yeah, so there's a lot of, I think, emotional states that we are in when we're experiencing that. Excuse me.
Now, Assemblymember Lowe is proposed.
And I would add being vulnerable in the service of love and self-compassion for oneself as well as one's community.
These are great. So when I was thinking about this for myself and being here in this community, I remembered that I was like really fired up, and I mean in a really positive way, when I took foundations. My background, as many of you know, was I was raised Catholic, but I had left the Catholic Church, and close to 40 years later, I stumbled upon then the First Church of Religious Science, Oakland, and it was mind-blowing to me. And I kept taking more and more courses, and it took me 4 academic school years to become a licensed religious science practitioner. And I was like, oh man, this place is so awesome and my life is going to be great and everything around me is really good. And now I know all that I need to know. And I was like, yeah, that's not what happened. So I had this moment and I was like, why is that happening? I think I'm conscious. I mean, I'm pretty sure I am. I feel like I'm more conscious than I was, like, say, 20 years ago. And I know that I practice, I pray, I meditate, I read. I don't get it. And it was like, well, you can do all of that. Then I came to realize that even if I felt bad, if I sort of refocused the lens, there were opportunities for me to see the good in that. And that awareness stopped me in my tracks. And it took me a while, and being perfectly honest, to be kind of still and to feel the good that can be in a place where maybe it doesn't always feel that way. And it almost seems a way for us to look at being able to embrace it, and perhaps offer forgiveness for something that we're holding on to. As an aside, when I was in foundations, I think the little book was called Forgive and Forget, I think it was like an optional, like, paperback to read. And I was dealing with some issues at that point in time in my life. And I read that and I was like, oh, hell no. And I just, the book went sailing across the room. So that took some work on my part. But over the last 18 years, certainly, I know I'm able to see God being operative really in everything, in terms of teaching me lessons, maybe sometimes out of the poor choices that I've made. And I can see spirit as the universal life source of forgiveness and grace, and all of that causes me to not be afraid, so that I can go into the eternal places, or I'll say the dark places, which we all have. And I'm sure a lot of you have studied psychology, and so you'll know all about the shadow. So there are those unconscious places where they pop up, and instead of just living in shame or living in sadness or in regret, to give oneself permission to go into them. You may know that there was a poem that Rumi wrote called The Guest House. So he was talking about all these different emotions and was like, bring them in, let them ruin the house, but bring them in. And it also reminded me of a passage in the Old Testament in Exodus. And there's a line that says, so this is when Moses, and they're all traveling out of Egypt. And the verse says, and the people stood at a distance, and Moses came to the thick darkness of the place where God was. And I just thought that was a really kind of powerful way to kind of imagine what that is, and how we can be observed by a lot of people and still have the strength and the courage to walk into what seems like a really dark and dangerous place that's going to ultimately feed us. So I don't know. I'm constantly reminded that no matter what the circumstances is, no matter what happens in life, no matter what it is, that God is in the darkness, it's in the light, it's always ready to meet me and be involved in my life, my experiences, to help me grow, to nurture myself. And that ultimately, I believe that it will gravitate back to that highest reality of my own self, that is spirit, the essence and core of my being. And for that awareness, I'm superbly grateful. Going back to foundations and feeling fired up. I had a mantra, I guess, sort of. It was first time I was reading the Science of Mind text. And I came upon a section that spoke directly to me. And I remember, I actually saw it this afternoon because I still have my beta full copy. I had circled it in gold ink and had tons of notes around it. And I would read it pretty much every day for like probably years. And Ernest Holmes starts this little part of a paragraph initially by quoting Ralph Waldo Emerson from his essay Spiritual Laws. And the first line is, "The finite alone has wrought and suffered. The infinite lies in smiling repose." So the finite, right? So you're in boundaries, has wrought, so it's being pounded into shape, right? And suffered is hurting. And then the infinite, boundaryless, is joyful. It's this line there, smiling. And then Holmes continues, "God is always God, no matter what our emotional storm or what our objective situation may be. There is always a something hidden in that inner being that has never been violated. We stumble, but always there is that eternal voice, forever whispering within our ear, that which causes the eternal quest, that thing which forever sings and sings." So that's one of, it's a very small sequence, and obviously in the Science of Mind textbook, but whenever I read it, it totally ignites, and I don't mean fired up in a huge way, but it's something that ignites my spirit, the light that is within me. And just so you know where it is, it's on page 33, paragraph 3. So I think sometimes there's an old saying, right? That be careful what you ask for. What I like better than that, I think, is to be more mindful of what I'm seeking instead of coming from a place of potential fear and condition, because I can invite unlimited possibilities of what the universal God, which is always going to say yes, or the law. And in this teaching, you know that it can be a double-edged sword, right? It's depending on what you're putting your attention on. But to imagine the power that spirit has to co-create that which we experience in this lifetime is so sweet to me and powerful. And back in a different class in Roots, there was the phrase, "God is good, and good is God." So I'm certain that it was, I mean, there could have been other people, but this was certainly an Emma Curtis Hopkins book, Scientific Christian Mental Practice. That's where I either heard it the first time or I certainly read it. Bonnie Allen, who was a practitioner at Oakland Center when I took Roots, was one of the co-facilitators, and I can remember her saying that. So to this day, like if I hear God is good, good is God, that's whose voice is echoing through my consciousness. But if you look at it, right, God equals good. And there's only one difference between the words, which is what? Yeah, exactly, Alice. It's the O. So I like toying around with stuff like that. So it's like, okay, so what is that little O? So maybe it's omnipotent, or maybe it's omnipresent, or maybe it's omniscient. So it's a way to kind of look at that word and know that it, like God, is representative of spirit as all power, as all presence, as all wisdom, and that the belief that God is good is a little bit more involved really than just saying those three little words. It's not just you or me saying it, it's demonstrated really in every moment of our lives. And so how do we know this is true in our experience? How do we really know that God is good and good is God? Well, kind of back to an earlier story, but I just think back on the times when I've been fired up, maybe not in such a positive way, and I've struggled only to come to the realization that I was trying to control my outcome. So I can spot someone with control issues a mile away because it's very familiar territory to me. But when I let go and allow the good that's been waiting to express itself, that makes all the difference in the world. And I think, you know, one of the way back, there were a couple of affirmations, and you don't have to come off mute if you don't want to, but I'm going to invite everyone to say these out loud, but we're going to do it three ways. So the first one is we're going to do my, your, and our. So the first affirmation is the universe has my back. Then we'll do the universe has your back, and the universe has our back. Okay, so for the first one, everybody together. The universe has my back. The universe has your back. The universe has our back. And the second one is the universe conspires on my behalf, your behalf, our behalf. Okay, so together we'll say, the universe conspires on my behalf. The universe conspires on your behalf. The universe conspires on our behalf. So when we understand that God, the universe, has our back, and in essence, kind of is like working behind the scenes to manifest good in our life, and that good is spirit. About something that fires one up. That's just like, that is a holy moment to recognize that. And it's not always apparent. I mean, that's certainly been true for me. You know, there are times when it's like, oh, God didn't show up. Why is that? Well, God did show up. I'm just not aware that it has shown up. And so I have to really be self-reflective and figure out, like, okay, so what actually is going on with me, and why am I feeling that? And sometimes, it's not always, but sometimes it could be that I'm experiencing what you, in essence, basically a spiritual bypass. Because it's really easy to go around people to avoid the conflict. And to sort of go, oh no, those are not my monkeys. That is not my circus. I am not getting involved in any of that stuff. I don't want to go there. And so in that way of not being in touch with what life has to offer us, I think, you know, when you think of bypass, obviously, right, you can think of heart surgery, or maybe a bypass like on a freeway. But what are those actually? You know, they're workarounds, and it's a way to get away from, you know, technically something that we appear as wrong, and so we want to avoid it at all costs. But when we can acknowledge the good that spirit brings to our life, even in the midst of whatever life is bringing us, which may not seem good, whatever our emotional storm may be, if we're willing to surrender, and that takes work, If we're willing to surrender, we may allow the divine to spark that little fire within each one of us. There's a quote I think that I really love that's by Father up here, Teilhard de Chardin, who was a French Jesuit priest, and I'm sure most of you have heard it before. But it's, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So I think this is really spot on, because I think it really speaks to the notion that no matter how high or expansive we believe our consciousness is, to embrace the knowledge that the kingdom of heaven is within each one of us right here and right now on earth, and that it's not in some galaxy far, far away in the ethers and outside of me, because in Catholicism, heaven is something outside of, and this was a game changer for me when I started taking courses here. The idea that the kingdom of God is within death was extremely powerful, and talk about feeling really fired up in a very positive and graceful way. It was, if my mind, well, it probably did to a degree, but it's almost like the little exploding head emoji that you see sometimes. It was like one of those kind of moments for me. So when we can see it in ourselves and we know the truth of what it is, and we can feel it's happening, and we allow ourselves to see it when we choose to, and we let go of trying to force the outcomes to whatever we're attached to, so we can let the universe take care of the how. And that's how we know that spirit is good. And so I invite you to allow the good in your life just to stand strong in the grand rising, to know that you are a divine incarnation of holy boldness. And whether the sacred flame is extraordinarily bright or a small sweet flicker, the loving kindness of spirit is that which allows each of us to be fired up. So in closing, please remember in this time of global conflict and division in America and uncertainty, to affirm your inalienable rights, to be willing to challenge legislation, to stand up and make yourself heard, to say something. And despite the tenet of the separation of church and state, please remember to exercise your right to vote, and invite folks who may not be registered yet to do so in November. But most importantly, be gentle. Be gentle with yourself, and to do it unto others as you would have them do unto you. Thank you. Peace, love, and blessings. And happy Pride 2024.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Ruth.
That was a beautiful, beautiful talk. Very meaningful, deepening, and timely. Especially the message at the right at the end there about exercising inalienable rights and voting. And thank you so much. It's really, 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 really meaningful to me. Let's everybody, you can turn your camera on and give Doug a little love. This is really, really good. Really, really rich. Thank you. So now we will be turning to our announcements. And I think Peter has the slides for these. So this Sunday, June 16th, Reverend Dr. Sunshine Michelle Coleman will be speaking on Unbounded and Unstoppable. That's her topic. Meditation starts at 10 a.m. followed by service at 10:30. And on Wednesday, June 19th, Juneteenth, at our midweek oasis, Reverend Chaplain Edwards will be speaking, offering a deeper conversation on the topic of unbounded and unstoppable. Meditation is at 6:30 and service is at 7, as it was tonight and every Wednesday. And it's on Zoom. You can go to oaklandcsl.org and click on services for the Zoom link. Then you can join our 2024 daily community spiritual practice using the Abundance Book. It's a 40-day prosperity plan by John Randolph Price. And today we are on the 4th day of the program using the 4th affirmation of the book. You can follow along daily in the order that the affirmations appear. And then next, we celebrate Pride Month in June, dedicated to the celebration and commemoration of our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, plus communities. Pride Month began after the Stonewall riots, a series of gay liberation protests in 1969. As Doug talked about in the beginning of his talk, I really appreciated all of that background, Doug. It was really interesting and helpful and a good reminder. I think I knew a lot of that, but it was really helpful to be reminded of the history. And so then our next is, please join us for our 10th annual, oh, sorry, not us, not OCSL. I was getting ahead of myself there. Join OCSL at the 10th annual Montclair Beer, Wine, and Music Festival, which is this Saturday, June 15th from 12 to 6 p.m. OCSL will be having a booth and we still need volunteers. I got a message today about this from Reverend Sunshine Michelle. I think volunteers are still needed. You can please contact Linda Wyman at bookstore@oaklandcsl.org. And hope to see you there. I'm going to be there. And then our next announcement is Father's Day is June 16th, Sunday, celebrating and honoring fathers and father figures in our communities. It's celebrated on different days in many parts of the world, but most commonly in June. And then we have Juneteenth. National Independence Day is celebrated on June 19th, which is this Wednesday, as a federal holiday in the United States. It's celebrated annually to commemorate the ending of slavery in the United States. Juneteenth is also known as Jubilee Day, Emancipation Day in Texas, Freedom Day, and Black Independence Day. So Juneteenth is coming right up. And if you work, remember not to go to work. I do work, and my manager today reminded everybody not to go to work on Wednesday because it's a federal holiday. Okay, and then our next one, our nonprofit partner is for June is the Middle East Children's Alliance, MICA. We recently had a presentation by them at the center on a Sunday. And they are working to protect the rights and improve the lives of children in the Middle East through aid, empowerment, and education. MICA provides humanitarian aid, partners with community organizations to run projects for children, and supports. And that is my phone. I need to turn that off. I'm sorry. Sorry for that interruption. And supports income generation projects. So please visit www.mica4peace.org if you want to learn more about this organization. And then we have one more announcement about save the date. Join us on August 17th, 12 to 5 p.m. for the Ultimate Family Reunion Centers for Spiritual Living in Oakland, including Oakland Center for Spiritual Living, East Bay Church of Religious Science, and Heart and Soul Center of Light. The event will be held at the Martin Luther King Jr. Regional Shoreline Park in Oakland. Registration opens later in June. Stay tuned for more information.
And I put in a preview in chat, Judith, of the June Diversity Circle meeting, which will be on June the 28th, and kind of aligned with Pride Month. It's going to be, the topic is on gender pronouns.
On June 28th?
Correct.
And where is that?
It'll be on Zoom,
Okay.
so
Great.
you'll see more soon. I just wanted to give everybody a preview.
Oh, good. That'll be a really interesting one. I think, yeah, that's great. I'm glad we're having that one. And that's going to be hosted by OCSL?
Yeah, it's myself and Sri Devi.
Oh, great. Great. Okay. Thanks for offering that. Okay. And then the next one, we have the Spirit Treasure Bookstore celebrates Pride Month and Juneteenth. Please donate your gently used spiritual books this month and check out the discount on Buddhas. For more information, go to bookstore@oaklandcsl.org. And visit csl.org to see what's happening with our Centers for Spiritual Living global organization. And please visit our website, oaklandcsl.org, to sign up for our weekly newsletter, The Village News. Remember to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook for special updates and content you will only find by liking and subscribing to the Oakland Center. And please like us and subscribe to the Oakland Center today. And on this slide, we're just honoring our main team at Oakland CSL. Of course, we have our senior minister, Dr. Reverend Sunshine Michelle Coleman. We have Beth Van Arkel, our board president, Susan Brecker, facility usage coordinator and practitioner, Steve Carter, who's our operations coordinator and helps with these meetings every Wednesday evening. Dorothy has been for many, many years, 15 years, I think, our Ministry of Prayer coordinator. Dorothy is stepping down, and those will be big shoes to fill. And Dorothy is also one of our alumnus practitioners. And Dow Becker is our bookkeeper. And of course, our own not to be missed Paul Prosciutti, who is also one of our Wednesday night hosts. Paul and I are going to be alternating every other Wednesday from now on. So we'll give a shout out to all of these people who contribute so much to the Oakland Center. So now we will turn to our joyous giving. Joyous giving, please join me. You can turn your mics off, because if we have too much sound at the same time, it doesn't work. But with your mics off, follow along with me, and we will read together this affirmation. The more gratitude
I feel, the more I am aware that the supply is infinite.
And so it is. And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you. And now we will go to, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can donate to the Oakland Center. If you go to oaklandcsl.org, in the upper right corner, there's this donate button. And when you click on the button, we come to these different ways that you can offer to support the center. You can do it by Zelle, you can do it by text, you can obviously make a cash offering in the basket on Sundays, or you can send in a check. And we have the address here also if you wanted to send in a check. And then we have this QR code that you can use as well. So all of these are different ways we gratefully accept and accept your support. The center is providing a lot for so many people and ongoing inspiration on Sundays and on Wednesdays and lots of things in between, as you can tell. So we welcome and we gratefully welcome your support. Oh, and credit card is another way. So thank you very much. And at this point, I would like to thank all of our team and everybody who's contributed to this program tonight. We, of course, well, I'm gonna, of course, give my shout out first to Paul Prosciutti, who has supported me in my maiden voyage with hosting and who also hosts what am I trying to say? Has hosted for so many years. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't remember exactly how many, but it's been a lot of years that Paul has been hosting this program. And of course, I want to thank our speaker, Chaplain Doug Myers. I loved your talk. It's a wonderful talk, Doug, and I think it'll be I know that I'll be thinking about it, and I'll probably go back and listen to it. It's deepening me. It's raising my consciousness. So thank you so much, Doug. And I want to also, of course, acknowledge Reverend Dr. Sunshine Michelle Coleman. She wasn't here tonight, but she's been very involved in helping get the Wednesday nights organized, and she's very much supporting everybody who's participating, whether she's in the service or not. She's very much present in her consciousness. And of course, our lead on the Zoom team is Peter Gum, who is also running the PowerPoints. We have Alice Herndon spotlighting and Alice Knutson, they're both working together, muting and spotlighting. Again, Paul has been managing this for quite a long time. And Peter has also been handling the recording, and Steve Carter, our administrator operations, has been, actually, that's not Steve's title, but Steve is our maybe administrative coordinator, and he also helps with these Wednesday night programs. So I want to thank everybody again. It's been a really, really rich evening tonight, and couldn't have happened without all of these people supporting. And I would like now to ask Doug, who will be offering the closing prayer.
Okay, so it's going to be the heart of the ministry of prayer, Dorothy Mendez. But Dorothy, right before you start, I have just one quick little thing I wanted to share, because I just learned of this today. So at the very beginning, I spoke about a riot that occurred in San Francisco in 1966, which was 3 years prior to Stonewall, the Stonewall Inn riots. So it's a plaque, apparently, and it reads, Gene Compton's Cafeteria Riot, 1966. Here marks the site of Gene Compton's cafeteria, where a riot took place one August night when transgender women and gay men stood up for their rights and fought against police brutality, poverty, oppression, and discrimination in the Tenderloin. We, the transgender, gay, lesbian, and bisexual community, are dedicating this plaque to these heroes of our civil rights movement. Dedicated June 22, 2006.
Fabulous. Let's all just give Doug another great hand for this wonderful service today. Send hearts, whatever. We thank you, Doug. We thank you. So let's all take a deep breath. Giving thanks for this time together. Giving thanks for our speaker, our chaplain, our practitioner, Doug Myers, who brings so much to this community. Giving thanks for everyone who helped to make this service complete in the mind of God. And we give thanks for our dear beloved Judith as she has her maiden voyage today, knowing that everything was right on time and everything is working the way it should be. We give thanks for our beloved Paul, who has released some of his duties to take care of self. We give thanks for everyone on this call, because without you, this service could not take place. So I am blessing each and every one of you. I am blessing and knowing that we are truly in our right and perfect place. And we have been enhanced and renewed by the words that our beloved Doug spoke to us today. We are refreshed with pride. We give thanks for the Pride Month, and we give thanks for Juneteenth that is about to take place, knowing that each one of these celebrations are bigger and better than anyone could possibly imagine. So I am knowing, as each and every one of us goes forth this evening, that God goes before us, grounding us, surrounding us in love and light. And if you agree with anything I've said, please join me in saying, and so it is.
Oh, it is.
Oh, it is.
And thank you. Thank you, Dorothy, for that beautiful,
Dorothy.
beautiful poem.